Okay. So let us start with Mangalacharanam prayers and then we'll get into ISOPANISAD. I'm extremely grateful to all of you for joining on time. Let us get the show started. Before that, as Mangalacharanam prayers, I hope all of you remember the shlokas and I request you all to chant along with me. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Suryavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Leelacharanivasaaya Nityaya Paramatmane Bhalabhadra Subhadrabhyam Sri Jagannathaye Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Upam karoti vachalam pangum langedi girim yatkripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum Dhinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Again, I welcome all of you with gratitude for being prompt in joining the session on time. So, slight change in our approach because I got feedback that there has to be some teaching and then we can go into question answers, even though participants might be reading at home and prepared, but still a brief on the shloka is more appropriate before we go into question answers. So what I'm going to do, I will take shloka number 5 and then I will also summarize from 1 to 5 what we have seen so far. So that way we will be able to go deeper into our mind and we may not forget. And then we will take question answers for the last 10 minutes or so. So let us chant the shloka together. Tate jati tannai jati tadhure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bhagyataha. Again, I think you are not seeing my my screen is not changing, right? Or has it changed?
It is not changing.
It is not changing. Let me see.
It has come. Only half.
Not full screen.
Half screen.
Half screen.
Now I think something is coming, but the shloka only has not come. Okay, so you can open your book. Before we start, can I have a show of hands? How many of you have got the book yet? Please raise your hands. Okay, thank you.
Kannada book? I have got a book, but it's Kannada.
Okay. Very good, very good. Okay, I see more hands up, but still Nityananda Prabhu has got, yes, okay. Okay. So still I have a good number of hands not going up. I request you all to get the book because you will relish it more. Actually, if you come with a reading of the particular shloka, you will relish it more, you will absorb it better, and you'll be able to face the questions also with much more confidence. So let us start. Mantra 5. Please open your books, and because I'm not able to display the shloka here for whatever reason. So I will read from the book. Tadejati tannaijati taddure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bahyataha. Read again. Tadejati tannaijati taddure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bahyataha. So the translation goes like this. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. This is the fifth shloka. So ISOPANISAD is, as we already know, it is coming from Yajurveda, and all Vedas have some Upanishads attached to them. And Upanishad means it is to be learned by sitting at the lotus feet of a spiritual master, and through him, he will enlighten us about God. Because he's a Tattvadarshi, he has seen God, so he will enlighten us about God. So that is the way to learn the Upanishad. So Upanishad's approach is called Parokshavad. Paroksha. Paroksha means they won't directly indicate God. Why is it like that? Krishna says, I like it that way. Paroksha, indirectly finding out the Lord by discussing paradoxical terms. Because, see, God cannot be explained materially. We all understand because none of us have seen God. So how can I explain God in material terms? Can I describe the color of God in material terms? Can I look at the eyes, nose, ears, etc. of God? We will immediately think that it's a material form. But God is completely transcendental. He's beyond the gunas. He doesn't have a material form. So in that situation, the Vedas and the Upanishads adopt the process of paroksha. They indirectly point out God so that you get an indication. And by sitting with a spiritual master, we understand the messages better. Are you seeing anything on your screen?
No.
No,
That is-
Prabhuji.
No, Prabhuji. No,
That is-
Prabhuji.
Nothing on screen.
Okay, let me just try one more time. The whole screen has changed. One second, let me go back. Share screen options.
Now we can see Prabhuji.
Okay, something is coming. Okay.
Yeah. Mantra
I-
5 is we can see.
Then, okay, I will keep the screen. I will not go to the play mode, full screen mode. I think if I go, something happens. So let us see. I will keep it like this. Okay, can you see the shloka now?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So let us understand this. Why the Vedas and Upanishads talk about God in this way is because people who are in the material world, who are governed by the three modes of material nature, don't have the capacity to understand God in direct terms because God is completely transcendental. So, in indirect terms, God is pointed out. For example, the moon is in the sky, it is just rising, and someone says, see, the moon is between the two branches of the neem tree. Can you see? The moon is there, like that. The moon is not between the two branches of the neem tree. Moon is quite far away. But still, for convenience sake, we say like this. So that way, an indirect approach is adopted in the Vedas, and they are very relishable actually. Particularly for devotees, they are extremely relishable because we already know that God is a person. We all know because we are all devotees. And we have been brought up by Srila Prabhupada personally by feeding us like mother's milk. He has been feeding us from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, from introduction onwards. Prabhupada is feeding us this most nourishing mother's milk that God is actually a person. And God loves you. God is your eternal well-wisher. God is the father, mother, and well-wisher of everyone. So like that, we also know the form of the Lord. We know his address. Prabhupada says, see, I will never say God, Prabhupada says. When so many press reporters and other VIPs, they ask Prabhupada, why do you call International Society for Krishna Consciousness? Why don't you say International Society for God Consciousness? Then Prabhupada said, look, when I know the name and address of God, you don't know the name and address of God, so you have to only say God. Like Prime Minister, if I don't know, I will only say Prime Minister, Chief Minister, Chairman, CEO. I will use names like that, the position. But if I know the person, I will know his name, his address, where he stays, what his likes and dislikes, preferences, prejudices, everything I will know. So Prabhupada said, I will not call God consciousness, I will say Krishna consciousness. And I will teach you people who is Krishna, so that you can also understand him and worship him in that most intimate way. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vedaischa sarve ahameva vedyam. So that means through all the Vedas, whatever research you do, the purpose is to know me only, Krishna says. The purpose is to know Krishna. So that way, the purpose of Upanishad is to point out Krishna to us, but in a paroksha way, so that we will first come out of our mental image that God is something like a human being. When we talk about the form of God, we immediately imagine a material form. So in order to protect us from that kind of misconceptions, the Upanishad is talking like this. So God walks but does not walk. God is far away but is also very nearby. And God is within everything and is also outside of everything. Like that, this is given. So Prabhupada says these contradictory statements about the Lord is to tell us that God has inconceivable powers. God has got inconceivable powers. Achintya Shakti. We should always remember. Whenever somebody asks you questions about God, you should remember that God has inconceivable powers. It cannot be explained, nor it can be understood by beginning devotees like us. It comes much, much later when there is a complete understanding of God, which God gives into our heart. God gives that understanding into our heart by seeing the sincerity of our effort, the sincerity with which we serve our spiritual master. Then the Lord will reveal himself to us. Till that time, we move on the basis of faith in scriptures and faith in the parampara system. That way, we become qualified to get everything revealed in our heart. So if someone will ask you about God, then how do you believe in God when you don't see him? Then this kind of answers will shut the mouth of such people who want to argue with you. So because how can someone walk and does not walk? Someone far away, but also very nearby, and within of everything and outside of everything. So such a thing, we don't have experience in this material world. So you have to understand, God is beyond material conceptions. And that's the point that Prabhupada makes. And if a person is not a devotee, which is, if a person is not under the guidance of a devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, who is a messenger of God, sent specifically for this purpose in this Kali Yuga, to give us this message of personalism. Somebody who doesn't have this guidance, when they see the shloka or when they see the other shlokas of ISOPANISAD, they will come to the conclusion that God is only a power. God is not a person. God has no form. The form that we talk about is only a material form. That means the formless God, when it wants to take form, it takes a material form. So the material form is only a covering. The invisible God is within that form. So they will say, for example, Krishna is not God, but God is within Krishna. And the same God is within me also. So that's not God. I am God, you are God, Krishna is God. They will come to that conclusion because they understand that I am not the body. I am the living principle inside the body. And they will say same thing about Krishna also. They will say Krishna is also a body like you and me. And the living principle inside him is Brahman. That same Brahman is within everyone. And we are all one. They will come to that conclusion. Man's mental speculative ability can only go up to that limit. The extreme is only that. Beyond that, man cannot go. So there is a point Prabhupada is saying. So we should remain extremely grateful that because of Prabhupada, we know how to read and understand Upanishads. Otherwise, it's not possible. So Prabhupada says, for example, how is God so far away? God is in the spiritual sky. God is in the spiritual sky. And where is spiritual sky? Far beyond material sky. And what is the limit of material sky? Our scientists are yet to find out. They are putting huge telescopes in the space, but they don't know. Where is the limit of the universe? And they say it is a ever-expanding universe. So when they will cross the material universe and then be able to see the spiritual sky? Not possible. So Prabhupada says, how can you, God is in the spiritual sky. So he is very, very far away. Goloka, Vaikuntha, they are in the spiritual sky. But at the same time, he is very near also. How is very near? See, Hiranyakashipu just smashed a pillar with his mace and instantly Narsingadev came out roaring, laughing with a screeching sound that shattered the universe. And he appeared there just like that. And Gajendra was caught in the mouth of the crocodile. And he just called out and instantly the Lord was there. And what the Lord did? Without an effort, he pulled Gajendra out of the water and put him on the land. And with his chakra, he cut the mouth of the crocodile and saved the elephant instantaneously. So the Lord is like that. He's everywhere. That is why Sarvasyasya, Antarasya Sarvasya, he is within everything. Sarvasyasya Bahyata, he is outside everything also. So can we say God is inside everything and God is outside everything? But in between there is something. Inside is God, outside is God. In between is something else? No, that is also God only. So there is a great saint who sang something called Tiruvachakam in Tamil. So he says, Anallan, Pennallan, Aliyumallan. He says, he's neither man nor woman, nor he's a eunuch. He says, oh, if I say he's not man or woman, people will come to the wrong conclusion that he's a eunuch. He says, he's not a eunuch also. So like that, very impossible for human beings to speculate about God. That we have to understand. But at the same time, just because my mind is not competent to speculate the form of the Lord, I cannot put up an argument that God has to be formless. God cannot have a form. You cannot impose such limitations on God. The moment you try to limit God to some definition, God will be always outside of your definition. And that is an atheistic approach, to try to fence God and say, God is within this one, there is no God outside. You cannot, because God is unlimited. You cannot fence him except with love. Like Yashoda Mai could tie him up with a rope. So that means she knew the circumference of Krishna, right? Otherwise, unless you know the circumference, how can you tie? But God is actually without circumference. So only by love we can tie him up, not by any other method. So these are broadly what Prabhupada is discussing here. And again, Prabhupada wants, but because Krishna cannot be seen and he is beyond the universe and he is a spiritual being, he is not material, it does not mean that he can become visible to us. He can become visible not only to devotees. If he wants, he can become visible to non-devotees also. He has that choice. We don't have that choice. He can appear to anyone he wants. Duryodhana saw. Even Dhritarashtra was given eyes to see Krishna. So please don't impose any limitation on God. That's the only way to understand him. And God's plans are ununderstandable. Never you can understand. See, Bhishma Dev is considered as a Mahajan. There are 12 Mahajans who know Krishna, the supreme principle, completely. And he says to Yudhishthira Maharaj, after the war is over, he's lying in the bed of arrows, and Yudhishthira Maharaj comes to see Bhishma Dev, and immediately Bhishma Dev is crying tears because Yudhishthira Maharaj is so dear to Bhishma Dev, and he could see them suffering unnecessarily. He's such a pure soul. All 5 Pandavas are pure souls, and Draupadi, they are transcendental personalities, but they suffered so much. And Bhishma Dev could not do anything. Actually, please understand, it's not that Bhishma Dev could not do anything. Because he is a pure devotee of Krishna, he was receiving instructions from Krishna within the heart. Do like this, do like that, do like this, do like that. So Bhishma Dev was strictly taking instructions from Krishna. That is why he did not intervene. Vidura was allowed to intervene in a limited way, but Bhishma was never allowed to intervene. That is Krishna's play. So actually, Bhishma is very dear to Krishna. So he is saying, Bhishma Dev is telling to Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira, you and your brothers, your family have suffered so much. You did not deserve to suffer this. You are such pure souls. But then Krishna's plans are inscrutable. We can never understand. This is a personality like Bhishma Dev is telling, who knows the heart of the Lord, but still he says, I don't comprehend why he does what he does. So we should have that attitude. But one thing we should always have faith, God is my well-wisher. He will never do anything to harm me. He never takes pleasure to see me suffer. When I suffer, Lord becomes infinitely compassionate to me. Not only to devotees, please understand, even to non-devotees. Lord is infinitely compassionate. See, imagine one father has 2 children. One child is obedient, another child is disobedient. So who will receive the favor of the father? Both children. Father loves both of them. Maybe he loves the disobedient child more because the child is going to get into suffering. But still, disobedient child is not willing to receive the help of the father. But obedient child receives all nourishment from the father. Disobedient child is in all wrong company, and he never listens to the father, and he suffers. Obedient child gets everything. In that way, devotees get perfect nourishment from the Lord. They enjoy their life thoroughly. A non-devotee cannot even appreciate how a devotee is enjoying his life. By simply surrendering his life to the Lord and leading his life as a service to the Lord. He's only thinking, how can I give pleasure to Krishna? He's always meditating like that. He's never bothered about his own comfort. And who is taking care of his comfort? That is Krishna's job. Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yajanaha Pariyupasatu. Without deviation, who is worshipping me constantly? For such people, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they already have. This is the Lord's promise. So that way, we read Upanishad with the purports of Srila Prabhupada, and that is how we get the correct meanings of what we are reading. So Lord has inconceivable potencies. We have already told that. Unlimited potencies. And it is said that Ananta, who is carrying all the universes on his hoods, has unlimited mouths. Through these unlimited mouths, he is trying to describe the potencies of the Lord, glories of the Lord, but he can never finish. Until the pralaya comes, he will never finish. Lord's glory is endless and they are growing constantly. So such being the glories of the Lord, his powers are unlimited. So Prabhupada says here, his unlimited powers can do most inconceivable things, which an ordinary human being with material limitation cannot understand. So non-believers argue either that the Lord cannot incarnate himself. They say God cannot come into the material world because God is spiritual. They are putting limitation. But no, God is spiritual, they are absolutely right. But if he wants to come into the material world, he can still come. And the material energies cannot control him. When we come into this material world, we are also spiritual. We souls are spiritual. Natvevaham jatana asamdatvam neme janadipaha. Krishna is telling in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, we are all souls and we are eternal. We are not born, we don't die. So the souls are incarnating. Like the Lord comes into this material world, he comes with Yogamaya potency. And the material energy is his servant. Material energy cannot control the Lord when he comes into this material world. What to speak about the Lord? The pure devotees of the Lord, they also cannot be controlled by material energy. They are beyond. They are outside the scope of material energy. The Lord says, don't touch them. They are under my personal protection. So Mayadevi does not touch the pure devotees. All other people, the moment the soul enters the material world, it is controlled. It is controlled by Mahamaya. So people think everyone in this material world, even though they are spirit souls, they are controlled by Mahamaya. So when the Supreme Lord comes into this material world, he must also take the assistance of Mahamaya to get a material form. And he comes under the control of the three modes of material nature. So for example, when Krishna is playing, or he's telling some lies to his friends and his parents, or sometimes he becomes angry with Shishupal, or he displays romantic affairs with Rukmini Devi or with the gopis, they say, these are all material. They will glorify Bhagavad Gita. That is amazing. The Brahman within Krishna is speaking. Bhagavad Gita. But when Krishna performs all these pastimes, they will say, no, this is ordinary material, like that. But as devotees, we know Krishna's pastimes of stealing butter and telling lies in Vrindavan are as glorious as Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield. He is Supreme Lord. His dharma comes from him. He is the master of dharma. Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavad Pranitam. We cannot say, oh, God should not tell lies. No, again, you are putting a limitation. So why God does all these things? Why Krishna does all this? To give pleasure to his devotees. Krishna's only aim is to enjoy himself and to give unlimited enjoyment to all his pure devotees. These are the only aim that Krishna has. As far as other souls are concerned, he is trying to help them come back to him. He is trying to help them come back to him. And he is assisted by Mahamaya. So we should understand that when the Lord comes here, he is not controlled by Mahamaya. One more point Prabhupada says, please note down. From our perspective, Krishna has many energies, like Andaranga Shakti, Bahiranga Shakti, Marginal Shakti, we say no, Tatastha Shakti, we say all these. But from Krishna's point of view, they are one and the same. Krishna's energy. So multiple energies for our perspective. From Krishna's point of view, they are all the same. They are all there to assist him. So that way, Krishna can transform one energy into another. Like the same electricity cools in the refrigerator, heats in the oven, right? But same energy, electricity. So Krishna's energy is like electricity. It will do whatever Krishna wants it to. So that point Prabhupada says, so we should not become confused. Another question Prabhupada answers, Archa Vigraha, right? The devotees worship the Archa Vigraha form in the temple or at home. They keep the Vigraha and worship. The Vigraha is made of matter. That is the argument people have. When you ask them, you say God is everywhere, you agree? They will say, okay, we agree. So is God not there in this deity also? They have to say yes. But they will say, why you have a deity at all? When God is everywhere, you worship God everywhere. But that is so difficult for us to do. So by his compassion, the Lord has revealed his form through the rishis and munis who are his pure devotees. And they have given the formula by which the sculpture should be made. And the Shilpis are trained. And they make that form strictly by the measurements given in the Agama Shastras. And that deity is Prana Pratishta is done by pure devotees who recite the necessary mantras, and out of their prema, they put the power of God into that deity. Then it becomes spiritual. Even though you may see it as a metal or a stone or a wood or a painting, it is actually Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada gives the example of a post box. Post box, it represents the postal department. So the post box is near your house, hanging from a tree, a red box. You post a letter there for America. You are sure that it will reach, because this is an authorized box of the government of India. That box represents the government of India. You cannot prepare your own red box and post your mail there. It is useless. So that is the difference between Archa Vigraha, which is properly installed, or we make our own by our imagination. In Kali Yuga, it is happening, right? People have Ganesha Puja, then they make their, according to their fancy, they make one Ganesha form. It's not authorized. It's not bona fide. No Acharya has given that form. So I am using my imagination, and it is demonic worship. That is called demonic worship. So we think we are doing actual worship of the Lord, but because we are allowing our mind to lead us in the worship, we are not following scriptures, it becomes demonic. It is faith in Tamogun, using our imagination for worship. So with this briefing, let us go into the question answers. So it is one energy of the Lord, but from our perspective, we call them as many energies. And Lord says, as the devotee surrenders to me, I reciprocate with him. So when you surrender to the Archa Vigraha, saying this is the Supreme Lord, accordingly he reciprocates. But if you see it is a stone or a wood, he will accordingly reciprocate with you. And to receive the best reciprocation from the Lord, we need to love him. For that we have to perform sadhana bhakti. And for this sadhana bhakti, we depend on the Acharya. And Acharya guides you on the basis of revealed scriptures. And that is a way to develop prema towards God. And then your worship of the Archa Vigraha becomes perfect. So there is a discussion about Saguna, Nirguna aspects of God. Many people will accept the Nirguna aspect of God as superior. Nirguna means formless, qualityless, nameless, like that. It's impersonal. That is called Nirguna. But there is a Saguna aspect. They will say Saguna is inferior. They will say Nirguna is the original God and Saguna is material. When God comes in, like he says, he takes care of devotees, he protects them, he kills the demons. They say that is material. Because the moment he takes a form, that's a material form. So they say Saguna is material. Nirguna is Brahman. That is transcendental. But that is wrong. Because the Saguna feature of the Lord is also, all these are transcendental qualities which are beyond Brahman. Brahman is a limited edition of God. It doesn't display the full powers of God. Right? It's only an impersonal Jyoti, light of the Lord. But the qualities of the Lord which are manifested when God comes to this planet, that is actually transcendental qualities. So we should never consider them as material qualities. So, okay, I think we have covered it broadly. I request all of you to kindly go through. Prabhupada gives really, really amazing purports. Now let us go to the question answers. I will go for play. Let me see if I don't lose this. Can you see, please?
No.
Plain
can
screen.
see.
Plain screen.
How? Can you see my first question?
Prabhuji.
No.
No.
Blank.
Oh,
Blank.
you are seeing a blank. Oh. Okay, just one moment. Because unless I go to the play mode, my full screen will be displayed. In play mode, I can go line by line. Let me try.
Yes.
Okay. Now
Gone.
Blank Guru.
Now it is gone blank. Okay. Okay. So there will be no suspense. The question answers, everything will be displayed. I will go to that mode. Okay. So now you see. Okay. So now you see the questions as well as answers. Only see the questions, don't see the answers. Okay. Let us try to move fast. How God's transcendental activities are described in the shloka. We are into mantra 5 only. So God's transcendental activities are how they are described in the form of contradictions. You see, in the material world, we use our logic and logic works. Typically, in the material world, logic works. But even in the material world, they say in the quantum field, logic doesn't work. Yeah, those of you who are advanced in physics, you know, I'm not a physics person, but I have read all these things with a lot of interest. So they say when you go into the quantum area, which is at subatomic level, they say your logic doesn't work anymore. Same way they say, you know, superconductors, they also behave in a way that doesn't answer to our physical laws. So like that, even in the material world, we see contradictions. So in the transcendental platform, everything is contradiction. And all contradictions exist harmoniously in the law. So when we think about contradictions, we should remember my thinking is using material logic. But when I rise to the transcendental platform, all contradictions are resolved very harmoniously. They coexist within the law. So that is a point. So that the Lord walks, doesn't walk, it is to show that, look, don't have material thinking when you try to understand. It will not help you, it will not work for you. You will be misled to understand God as impersonal, and that's a great misfortune. Do you know why? Does anybody remember Bhagavad Gita, where Lord talks about worship of the impersonal form? Can anyone recollect?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Yeah, it talks about this in chapter number 12.
Correct. Shloka 5. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
What does it say?
It says that it will be difficult to pray in that mode for the material bodies that we have.
Yeah. Actually, not even difficult. It is a disaster. That's what the shloka says. If anybody tries to worship God as impersonal, it is a disaster for them. Tesho adhikataraha. Tesham means such people. Avyakta chetasam. Those who think God as formless. For them, klesho adhikataraha. They will experience huge, insurmountable problems. Those who want to worship God as formless. Like, they may worship Ganesha, Kartik, Shiva, or Vishnu. They may worship these forms. They may visit the temple also. Right? They may perform puja at home. But they will have a conception in their head that I am worshipping these forms because of a family tradition, or it is easier for me to focus on these forms. But ultimately, all these forms are bogus. Ultimately, it is formless. People who think like that, they are called impersonalists. Okay. So don't think impersonalists, don't visit temples, don't perform puja, worship, vrat, and all that. Don't think like that. An impersonalist is one who thinks ultimately there is no form. So the forms are material according to them. All the forms of God are material. And all gods are same. They will say all gods are, because they're all material. They don't make a distinction between Shiva and Vishnu. They will say, they will fight with you. If you say Shiva and Vishnu are different, no. If you say like this, you will go to hell. They will say like that. If you say Shiva and Vishnu are actually two different divinities, and Shiva is a demigod, they will pounce on you. And they will say, no. Ultimately, God is formless. Shiva, Vishnu are forms of the same impersonal God. They will say like that. So that we have to understand. Krishna is warning against that in 12.5. Klesho adhikatara tesha avyakta asakta chet avyakta asakta chetasam. Those whose minds are attracted to formless God. They are not attracted, unfortunately, to Krishna because they have not met devotees. Because they have not met devotees, their mind is conceiving of only a formless God as the highest. Then Krishna proceeds further. Avyaktahi gatir dukkham. They will only reach suffering, disaster. Those who worship impersonal form. They will face only disaster. Gadi dukkham. Their destination is suffering. So we are warned against it. Prabhupada saved us from that disaster. Now we know logically, scientifically, that God has formed. God is formless also by his choice. But God ultimately is a supreme person. That way. So what do these...
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Mataji.
Sorry for the interruption, Prabhuji. I have a doubt here. Should
Ah.
I ask? Prabhuji, actually,
Please hold on to your doubts. I'll
okay, Prabhuji, sure. Prabhuji.
cover
Hare Krishna.
something and then we'll come. Yeah. So what do these contradictions prove? The contradictions in the shloka, they prove that Lord is beyond our material understanding. So the next question is, why logic fails in front of Krishna? Though it is useful in this material world. Answer is, logic is a material concept. It is not spiritual at all. In the spiritual world, your logic doesn't work. What works in the spiritual world? Prema. Here, we live on the principle of lust, kama. The governing principle of material world is kama. Everyone wants to enjoy. They want to enjoy through their own senses. They want to control and master this world. My world, I am the master. So that is kama. That is the governing principle here. And logic is the principle that works here. But in the spiritual world, it is prema. And everything is done out of love. And because God is unlimited, he makes anything and everything happen. Like Chinta, Mani, Pradarasad, Masukalpa, Vriksha. In Brahma Samhita, Brahmadev describes how Goloka looks. There, the dust on the streets, it's all Chintamani stones. You know Chintamani, what you think it will give, that's called Chintamani. What you think, what you desire, it will give. So the dust is there, Chintamani. And the trees, Kalpavriksha trees, all the trees in Vrindavan, in Goloka, they are all Kalpavriksha. That means they also will fulfill whatever you desire. And then the cows, Lakshavrudeshu Surabhi, they are all Surabhi cows, Kamadenu cows. Kamadenu means what? What you desire, it will give. Dena back. Kama means desire. Dena means gives. So Kamadenu means what you desire, it gives. So such cows Krishna is grazing, not the ordinary cows. Not only they will give milk, but anything you ask, they can give. Such cows. And then the gopis who are carrying cow dung on their head, who are they? They are all Lakshmi. They are all Lakshmis, plural. Lakshmi Sahasra Savasam Brahma Sevya Manam. The Lord there is served by Lakshmis in millions and crores. This is spiritual world. So we understand that everything happens there as desired by the devotee. Now, what does a devotee desire in the spiritual world? They have no personal desire. So the Surabhi cow in the spiritual world gives only milk. Why? Can anybody answer?
Because there is no desire there.
They have no desire. They use cow like any other ordinary cow. And they take milk and use it for making nice sweet meats for Krishna, churning butter for Krishna. That's all. And the trees are all behaving like ordinary trees. Nobody is testing them. Nobody has any desires at all. So that is very important. So please understand the opulence of spiritual world. What is the opulence of spiritual world? Not the Chintamani, not the Kamadenu, not the Kalpavriksha, not the Lakshmis. The real opulence of spiritual world is no one has any desire other than Krishna's pleasure. That is the opulence of spiritual world. That is the opulence of God. Yes. So nothing manifests there except prema, madhurya, only madhurya, sweetness of the Lord manifests there in God. Okay. So what is wrong with speculating? Why we should not speculate about God?
Because we are imperfect.
We have 4 master imperfect. That's how Prabhupada starts, when you read Bhagavad Gita introduction. 4 insurmountable defects.
Can I say, Prabhu?
No, Mataji, not required. So everybody should refer and know. These 4 defects make sure that your speculation has its limitation. Your speculation is only material. You cannot speculate on something transcendent. Are there multi-energies, not musty energies? Are there multi-energies from Krishna's perspective?
No.
No. So please understand this. From our perspective, there are unlimited energies. Internal, external, marginal, and so many more. Kripa Shakti, Achintya, so many Shaktis we talk about. But in Krishna's perspective, it's all one. And it gives, let me tell you one thing, I will not elaborate further. Krishna knows everything, correct? He is omnipotent, omniscient. So pastimes are happening in the spiritual world. Pastimes are happening in the spiritual world. People have a sense of suspense. What is going to happen? They do not know. But what about Krishna? Does he know or not? Can anyone answer?
He knows before we even think.
Yeah. So how will Krishna enjoy the pastimes? Everyone else is enjoying. But is Krishna enjoying?
Yes.
How?
The pleasure of the devotees is what is required for the Lord Prabhuji.
That is fine, but still, is it not? Does it mean that the Lord doesn't have any happiness of his own?
He's always happy.
You see, he's crying when Mother Yashoda tries to tie him up. Is he acting?
Yes.
Is he acting?
Acting with
No,
give
Prabhuji.
Mother Yashoda.
No, Prabhuji, it's Yoga Maya which is making Krishna do that.
See, Yoga Maya is the energy of Krishna. It's the internal energy of Krishna. But for the sake of pastimes, Krishna hands over his omniscience, omnipotence, etc. to Yoga Maya. It is his own energy. But Yoga Maya does everything for Krishna's pleasure only. She is the servant of Krishna, Yoga Maya. But still, Yoga Maya knows more than Krishna for the sake of pastimes. For the sake of pastimes. So when Krishna is crying, he is really crying. That's why Kunti Devi in her prayers, she is telling, I cannot understand Krishna. Fear personified is afraid of you. But your mother Yashoda is standing with a tiny stick in her hand and she is threatening you. And you are crying in fear. And tears are rolling out of your eyes. Your mascara is melting and it is pouring on your chest. How is it? She is amazed. That is not acting. That is not acting. Krishna is actually experiencing. So the entire spiritual world is made of prema. It is on the ecstatic platform. Within ecstasy, various emotions are experienced. They are called Satvika Bhava, Anubhava, Vivachari Bhava, like that. They are all experienced in the spiritual world. Including Krishna, everybody enjoys it. Not that Krishna is exempt from enjoying. He also enjoys completely. Even Krishna doesn't know. Even though Yogamaya is his servant, he hands over the memory disk to Yogamaya. Okay. We can discuss pastimes like that maybe at some other time, but this is only for theory purpose. How non-believers are misled by inconceivable potencies? They come to the conclusion that God must be impersonal, right? Okay. Bhagavata school means devotees, right? There is a school, impersonal school and Bhagavata school. Let us say like that. Impersonal school means they are people who don't believe in form of God. Bhagavata school means they accept, they are devotees. They are people who accept God's form as supreme personality. So what do they say about God's potencies or features? Impersonal people, they cannot reconcile, correct? Contradictory things they cannot reconcile. Say, for example, they will say Nirguna, they will accept. But when it comes to Saguna, they will not accept. They will say Saguna is material. Does anybody have confusion about what is the meaning of Nirguna and Saguna? Does anyone want clarification? Okay. So you all understand. God with qualities, without qualities. Qualities, when we say God with qualities, they appear like human qualities. They are not human qualities. They are transcendental qualities. We get misled. That's why in Bhagavatam it said, Buddha Kapata Manusha. When Krishna and Balram come to this world, like ordinary human beings, and they perform activities, but sometimes he lifts the Govardhan hill for 7 days and 7 nights, like a small child, but like a child lifting up a mushroom. Bhagavatam says like that, like a child lifting a mushroom. Krishna picked up Govardhan hill for 7 days and 7 nights on his little finger. That is superhuman. But still, everyone in Vraja, they think Krishna is our child only. They don't see him as God. So he appears covered as a human being, but it's not a human being. So in the devotees accept inconceivable powers of the Lord. They can see, for example, You think of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu took such a boon from Brahma. Brahma said, I cannot give you immortality because I will die myself. Then he said, okay, then you give me this next boon. And he made a big list. I should not die by this, die by this, die by this, die by this. Brahma said, all right, you take it. And while going back, Brahma was thinking, my God, I have actually made him immortal. Even I will die, but if my rule is to be followed, he will not die only. So Brahma is thinking like that. How he will die? So all the devatas are running away from him, hiding, because he has become invincible. No one can kill him. Yes, but ultimately, effortlessly from the pillar, suddenly for the first time, people see this form. Nara Hari Rupa, half man, half lion. So he fulfills all the promises given by Brahma. And still within a moment, he kills Hiranyakashipu. So that is the inconceivable power of Brahma. That devotees believe. So no one would accept that God could have done such a thing. In fact, some of you may remember we did one drama a little while ago. That was about one sage is doing penance to see Vishnu, and there is another cobbler. He's a devotee, but he's doing his work, regular work. But the sage is making such difficult efforts to see Lord Tapasya, and the Lord sends a message through Narada Muni to the sage saying, you can see. The sage wants to know what the Lord is doing. So Narada Muni says, Lord is passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. And once he finishes that, he will give you darshan. The sage becomes very angry. How is it possible that an elephant can go through the eye of a needle? He gives up his austerity, he goes away. Let me at least enjoy the rest of my life. The same message is told to the cobbler. And the cobbler says, oh, that means any moment the Lord will be here. Narada is asking, how do you think it is possible? He says, look at this banyan tree under which I am sitting. Look at the seed. From the fruit is so tiny. The seed is even more tiny. One fruit contains hundreds or thousands of seeds. In each seed, there is a banyan tree. If the Lord could put one banyan tree into each seed, what is the difficulty for him to pass an elephant through the eye of a needle? So that is faith. So devotees have that faith in the Lord, and they experience incredible manifestations of the Lord in their life. But impersonalists will never do that because they are controlled by their logic. Their mind is always slave of logic. They cannot understand the inconceivable potencies of God. Okay, how will I believe God when I don't see Him? There's a problem, no? In the ISOPANISAD, we are seeing a very impersonal kind of description of the Lord. So how will I believe? So that is where faith comes in. And this faith, is such a precious commodity. Such a precious commodity. If you have faith, you should become very, very grateful to the Lord. Oh God, you gave me faith, you saved me. There are people who cannot have that faith. You know how the faith comes? Faith comes from an accumulation of sukriti, not ordinary sukriti, bhakti sukriti. How do you get bhakti sukriti? By serving Vaishnavas unknowingly. Unknowingly you serve a Vaishnava, and that accumulates. Or a Vaishnava came into your life and he prayed for you. You had an association of a Vaishnava briefly, and that rubbed off. And that sukriti piles up, and that sukriti alone becomes faith. Otherwise, no faith. For one to have faith in God, it's a great thing. So when we are now doing sadhana bhakti, we are all very fortunate because someone has put the seed of faith into our heart. That is, only from a devotee you can get devotion. Bhakti, it comes from God and it travels through devotees. Nowhere else. In the material world, there is no bhakti except in devotees. And only from devotee it will pass. Devotee can give bhakti to you. No other way to get bhakti. So please understand. We have to see through scriptures from bona fide parampara of devotees. That is the only way to see Him. So we have to believe. Okay. If God is so far away, how does He appear in a flash to the devotees? So there are two aspects of the Lord. He is pervading every atom impersonally. Pervading everything, but He can manifest from any atom in creation anywhere. That is the power of the Lord. That's the inconceivable power of the Lord. He is fully aware of everything that is going on, fully cognizant of whatever is going on. And he can manifest, like we saw in the case of Gajendra or in the case of Hiranyakashipu. He could just like that manifest. So is Krishna the visible person, God? The Krishna, the person we see, is it God? Yes, but he looks human and made of matter, but he's not really a human person. So that's why Krishna says, Avajananti ma mudha, manushim tanumasrita. I come in a human-like form, and mudha, foolish people, they don't understand me. And they make fun of me, they deride me, saying I am only a human being. They don't understand my greatness of God. They say God will not come down, God cannot come down. So Krishna is a man. So Krishna says, Avajananti ma mudha. Foolish people will not know me. So one nice devotee was giving class on another scripture. He was telling, Acharyas are translating the word mudha not as fools. You know how they translate? Unfortunate people. So unfortunate people, they don't accept Krishna as God. Because with that, their spiritual life is sealed. When they say we don't accept Krishna, their spiritual life is sealed. So that's why they are unfortunate people. Why we are fortunate? Somewhere devotee must have interfered in our life and they have given us the seed of devotion. Sukriti, Bhakti Sukriti. And with that, we have developed faith. Now we should not lose our human form, precious human form of life. Now we should do Bhakti and go back home to Krishna. Okay. So how does he accept our services? Through Archa Vigraha. Because he has interchangeable powers. Archa Vigraha looks like matter from our perspective. But Krishna, for him, matter and spirit are the same. Interchangeable. So through the deity, Krishna can eat the bhoga offered by you. He glances and then eats. And if some of you know the story of Sakshi Gopal, you know God walks also. God is, the statue is standing in the temple. But when the Brahmana said, please come and give witness, then the statue walked. The statue talked also and it walked also. So like that. Archa, okay. Are the energies mutually exclusive? This question, do you understand? We think internal energy different, external energy different, marginal energy different. From our perspective only, Krishna's perspective, they are all one only. That is the point I wanted to make. So who can see God? Not that nobody can see God. Our eye of love should be opened by spiritual master. Then we can see the Lord. Not that prema jana churida bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti. Those whose eyes are anointed with prema, in their heart Krishna shines 24 hours. They see the form of the Lord and they serve him. That is the advantage for a devotee. Do Kanishta Bhaktas do idol worship? Prabhupada discusses that. I don't want to spend too much time on this. You can read the purports. But Prabhupada clearly says Kanishta means beginner Bhakta. Beginner Bhakta. They don't have complete philosophical understanding of the Bhakti path, but still they are not worshipping a Vigraha. They know that this Vigraha is the representative of my Supreme Lord. They see the Lord in the Vigraha and they worship the Lord through the Vigraha. So they are not doing idol worship as Christians or Muslims accuse. They say Hindus are doing idol worship. It is not idol worship. We are worshipping this as a representation of the Supreme Lord under the guidance of Acharyas and scriptures. It is not the same as idol worship. I already told you what is idol worship. Like they do in Ganesha puja, like that. That's idol worship. How Lord reciprocates according to one's surrender? Ye tamam prapatyante tamstadeva bhajami. Krishna is equal to all. Name dvesho asti na priya. Krishna says, I am not favoring anyone. I am not envious of anyone. But if someone is my devotee, I live in him and he lives in me. So that way, he is definitely equal to all. Everybody can become a devotee and experience the complete reciprocation of Krishna. Even within devotion, we see many multi-levels. And as we go higher and higher, we experience greater and greater reciprocation from Krishna. As the level of gopis, they experience the greatest reciprocation of Krishna, because they surrender everything to him. And Krishna becomes their debtor. Krishna says, I cannot repay the debt. Here Krishna says, I reciprocate perfectly. But to the gopis, he says, I am sorry, I cannot reciprocate. You have gone beyond my ability to, even in a whole day of Brahma, I cannot repay the debt. Okay. So Saguna versus Nirguna, we have seen relation between God and energy. Who is God and who is the energy? So God is Purusha, enjoyer, and energy is Prakriti, enjoyed. And who are we? We are Jiva Prakriti. We are Jiva Prakriti. Our body is made of Bahiranga Prakriti. Our body is Bahiranga Prakriti. Our soul is Tatastha Prakriti. So both are energies of Krishna and it is enjoyed by Krishna. So once you understand Krishna is the Purusha and enjoyer, I am a female and he has to enjoy me, then all your sufferings will come to an end. You have to live in this world in the understanding that Krishna is the enjoyer, not me. Not me. Let me give him enjoyment. If you have that mood, that's a perfect way to live in this world. So when does energy control God? I already discussed Yogamaya potency. When Krishna desires, he allows himself to be controlled by his energy also. Similarly, devotee, Yashoda could tie him up, correct? So that is to show he can be controlled by his Jiva Shakti. So does God become formless during creation? No. God is in the spiritual world, creation is in the material world. So God remains with form in the spiritual world always. Okay, what is the formless Brahman? Is it God? Brahman is also God, but it is an incomplete aspect or incomplete understanding of God. Like when you see a mountain from a great distance, you may see only a silhouette, only an outline, a bluish line you will see in the horizon. But as you go closer and closer, you get more and more features of the mountain being manifest to you. Same way, as a devotee, you go close to God, then you no longer see Brahman. But when you far away from God, you see only the light of God and you call it Brahman. It is also God only, but a distant view. Distant. So Brahman is also God. We don't argue that Brahman is not God. In fact, we say everything is God. But we have to understand the distinction between Brahman and Supreme Personality. Okay. Atheists cannot make God appear, but devotees can make appear. Yes, the example is Prahlada and Hiranyakashipu. For Prahlada, instantly the Lord appeared. Antaryami and Virat. Antaryami means within us, Paramatma. Virat means he is everything. The whole creation is he. So is it paradoxical? No. Why not paradoxical? God has inconceivable powers. So he is within everything and outside everything. So what does he do as a witness? Paramatma is a witness. Hanumanta, Upadrishta. He is seeing everything. What you see, he is also seeing. Upadrishta. And he remembers all our actions and accordingly he awards results. Okay, I think I will skip this. It's more or less a repetition of the same thing. I will go to the summary of the first 5 shlokas. So first shloka was invocation. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam. So let us once again say, Ishopanishad or Isavasya Upanishad tries to give us an understanding of the Supreme Lord. Like Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra gives us a definition of God. Same way, the various Upanishads are trying to give us an understanding of God through Parokshavad, indirect way they are trying to describe. So the first shloka we saw invocation, it's like a prayer. So the prayer says, Supreme Person is complete and perfect. Everything that come out of him is also perfect, including the material world, also perfect. And Prabhupada gives an example. I am a complete body, correct, complete person, and my hand is also complete because whatever purpose for which it is made, it is executing that purpose. So completeness comes from completeness for the purpose. So my hand is performing its purpose as long as it is attached to my shoulder. Supposing I cut my hand off, it is still the same hand, but it is not complete. So everything that comes out of God is complete. But why am I feeling incomplete? Can someone answer?
When we separate from the Lord.
We forget the Lord. We forget our connection with the Lord. Then we are like a hand that is cut off. What will happen? It will decay and wither away. It is useless when disconnected. When we are connected with the Lord, we serve the Lord according to His will, and we are nourished. The Lord will nourish us with His unlimited ecstasy, but we have to reconnect with Him. So that way, everything is complete. Material world is also complete. We always complain there is overpopulation, there is so much pollution, there is scarcity, there is exploitation. All this is bunkum, all nonsense. This is all disconnection from God. Material world is perfect in itself. And God remains perfect in His place. After having created so much material creation, the Lord remains perfect where He is. So this is again a contradictory statement from our material experience, but we have to understand. We belong to Bhagavata school. We believe in inconceivable powers of the Lord. So we are able to easily take all these things and relish it also. So mantra 1, everything animate and inanimate is controlled and owned by God. So first it tells us, please understand everything belongs to God. And once you remember this, you remain satisfied with what is given to you and never be envious of what others are having. So that is the Isavasyam principle. We should never forget. Everything belongs to Krishna. My property, my family, my body, my intelligence, my mind, my senses, everything belongs to Him. My soul also belongs to Him. We should remember. In that mood, whatever is given to us, we should use it as it is necessary and serve Him. That is the Isavasya. Second law says, if you internalize this Isavasya principle, then you can live hundreds of years in this world happily without any problem. The karma will not bite you. What is the fear of living in this world? Bondage of karma. That brings you rebirth. Every action brings a reaction, and we become tied up in the three modes of material nature. But if you follow Isavasya principle, you will never be bound. So you can live very happily in this world. And then ISOPANISAD says, this is the only option to escape from karma. So there is no other option. Only we have to always remember, it's all Krishna's property. And it is temporarily given to me. What for? I should use it for that purpose. And thus I should go back. Third mantra, second mantra is about, by following Isavasyam, what we will gain. Third mantra, if you don't follow Isavasyam, how you will suffer. Unintelligent, unfortunate, animal-like people. For them, the destiny is dark, filled with ignorance and hellish. They ignore the value of this body. Precious, not previous. Precious human body. They ignore the value. So they suffer. So this is the first three mantras. Fourth mantra and fifth mantra, we are entering into the powers of the Lord. Now, next mantra, we will go directly into a description of God. Gradually, we are moving towards it. So inconceivable powers of the Lord are described in such a way that we will appreciate and become respectful and agree that I can never understand the Lord. Oh, this much I know, I am very grateful, but I understand that I can never know Him fully. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. So we have discussed the mantra also, and we have gone through question answers. If I can fix my PPT next time, it can be more exciting. So thank you for staying on. Now, Mataji, you can ask your question. You had a question. Then we'll close.
Prabhuji, will the PPT be shared in the group, Prabhuji?
PPT, I will not share, Mataji. Because,
please, Prabhuji, because there is so much to think over, Prabhuji. We have to read again and again, because whatever you were telling, we cannot have anything in any book in that. So if I read once again, and to some extent I have taken notes, that I will connect, and whatever words you have said, I will try to recollect, Prabhuji.
Mataji, why I am hesitating is, when I am displaying the PPT and I am also explaining, you will get the correct understanding. If you have the PPT and you try to understand yourself, no, then you may come to some wrong understandings. I want to avoid that. That's a little risk, because these PPT, the answers I have prepared for myself. These answers, if you see, it may not make complete sense to you. It may even mislead you.
But we have listened to you, Prabhuji.
But
And
still,
we have listened.
it should not stand alone. Let me think about it. If I feel all right, maybe I will make some editing and then share it. But let me think over it. Did someone have a question? Suma Mataji, someone was.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, you said that the impersonalists will suffer a lot, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So what
did not
I
say,
had understood
Krishna
was
said.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Your words are Krishna's words, Prabhuji, for us. Because so the three modes, those who consider the Brahman and the Paramatma and the Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
those,
yes.
all the three, what I thought was they will never perish, and that Neha Vikrama Nashosti, Pratyavayana Vidyate, those who worship, those who little do the service, they will never come to an end. So
Correct.
it did not.
That's a correct
according to them,
understanding.
Prabhuji.
But the problem is you cannot worship Brahman and you cannot worship Paramatma, because devotional service means serving the Lord. Bhakti means loving devotional service. You cannot perform loving devotional service to the impersonal or to the Paramatma. So it is not possible, because see, all of us are accepting that I am this body. We are not the body. But that is how we live in this world. We are accepting this body as being. And we accept various relationships in terms of the body only. But when it comes to God, we want to say that God has no form. So that is why Krishna says, Avyaktahi gadir dukkham, dehavadbir avapyate. We all have our bodies, but we want to say God has no body. So he says such an approach is full of problems, full of suffering. So even if somebody wants to worship Brahman, he must do bhakti along with that. Somebody wants to reach the formless God, that means he will not do any bhakti. Formless God, he will use the Jnana Marga. But the scripture says, by doing pure Jnana Marga, you cannot attain Brahman also. Forget about Krishna. By Jnana Marga, you cannot even attain Brahman. You have to do at least some devotion along with your Jnana. Then what will happen? You can reach Brahman. That your desire will be fulfilled. So that is why impersonalists are in extreme danger. Because first of all, they are deviating from the teachings of the Lord. They are deviating from the scriptures of the Lord. And they are living in this Kali Yuga, which is, full of faults. So impersonal worship is completely decried by Krishna. He says, never do it. You read the 12.5 purport of Prabhupada also. You will get an amazing understanding. Prabhupada says, one should not do impersonal worship. You see that small purport, at the end of it, Prabhupada says, one should not do impersonal worship. Krishna does not recommend it. You please open and see for yourself. Yeah.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I had a doubt which I wanted to ask, but missed it last week, Prabhuji. It is from the introduction of ISOPANISAD. Shall I ask, Prabhuji?
Okay.
Prabhuji, it says, the book says Shankaracharya is supposed to be an impersonalist who preached impersonalism, impersonal Brahman, but it is a fact that he is a covered personalist. Could you explain that, Prabhuji? I didn't get it.
See, Shankaracharya is actually Lord Shiva in disguise. And Shiva is considered number one Vaishnava. In Bhagavatam, you will find Shiva himself declares. Shiva appears in front of Prachetas, some devotees, and he says, he says, Vaishnavas consider me as the number one Vaishnava. Krishna says, Shiva says, I am number one Vaishnava. All Vaishnavas are dear to me, and I am dear to all Vaishnavas. So he is a personalist. Who? Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is personal. And it is the same Lord Shiva who appeared as Shankaracharya for a mission. He was sent by Lord Vishnu with a mission. He said, go and propagate this impersonalism, Mayavad. That was an order given to him. So he executed that perfectly. But while executing that, he also gave hints for us with Vajagovindam, like that, He says, Samprapte sannihite kale, nahi rakshati dukrinkaran. You don't do all this philosophy, logic, and wrangling. It will not save you when you die. When Yama comes, it will not save you. Only Bhajagovindam will save you. Like that he has given. And also Prabhupada will again quote. Shankaracharya says, Narayana Paro Vyaktat. That means Lord Narayana is beyond material creation. So the moment an impersonalist says that something is beyond material creation, something exists, then he is no longer impersonalist. So even though Lord Shiva as Shankaracharya executed the mission of impersonalism, at heart he was a devotee. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Okay? Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavad pranams.
Hello. Vancha
Prabhuji, I have a doubt.
Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gurudev ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.